If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, your dream bedroom or basement hangout wasn't complete without one specific item, a mini hi-fi component, or as we all called it back then, a shelf stereo system. Its equalizer lights bounced up and down to the beat of the bass, and its crisp sound was the soundtrack to our youth as we blasted cassettes of legendary rock bands and hip-hop mixtapes. Out of all the brands out there, one name frequently ruled this category: AIWA. But try walking into a Best Buy or any electronics store today. Look for that brand. You won't find it on the main displays anymore. The brand that was once a pioneer of audio innovation is now just a historical artifact. How did a highly successful company that rivaled giants like Sony, Panasonic, and JVC end up being swallowed by time? Let's turn back the clock and unpack the history of the rise, the golden era, and the ultimate fall of the Japanese audio giant AIWA. Our story begins in Japan on June 20th, 1951. A small company named Eiko Denki Sangyo Co. Limited was founded by a group of engineers led by a key figure named Mitsuo Ikejiri. Don't imagine them immediately building high-tech tape recorders. Their very first product was incredibly simple: microphones. In the post-World War II era, Japan was rebuilding its industry. Eiko Denki Sangyo saw a massive opportunity in broadcasting and communications. Their microphones were famous for being durable and high quality, allowing the company to steadily grow. In 1959, they decided to change their name to something catchier for the global market. That name was AIWA Co. Limited. In 1964, AIWA made Japanese history by releasing the first domestically produced cassette tape recorder, the TP-707. This innovation completely changed how the Japanese public recorded and listened to audio. However, being an innovator doesn't make you immune to financial struggles. In the late 60s, AIWA needed a massive injection of research funds. And who came to the rescue? Their own neighbor, Sony. In 1969, Sony bought a 54.6% majority stake in AIWA. Technically, AIWA became a subsidiary of Sony, but they were allowed to operate independently. They designed, manufactured, and marketed their own products. And this exact decision would spark a civil war in the electronics market years later. Entering the 80s, the portable music era exploded. Sony released the Walkman and changed the world forever. But AIWA didn't just sit on the sidelines. In 1980, AIWA released a direct competitor to the Walkman, famously named the Cassette Boy, model HSP-1. Interestingly, AIWA's products often featured more advanced technology than Sony's at a much more reasonable price point. AIWA was the first company to include stereo recording and auto-reverse in a portable cassette player. Auto-reverse was absolute magic at the time. You no longer had to go through the hassle of manually flipping the tape when side A ended. AIWA's business strategy was brilliant. While Sony played in the premium market with sky-high price tags, AIWA positioned themselves right in the middle. They offered Sony-level advanced technology and stylish designs, but at a price point that was friendly to the wallets of teenagers and middle-class families. This strategy was a massive success. By the 90s, AIWA was no longer just living in Sony's shadow. They were an independent powerhouse dominating the global audio market. Let's bring the story to the States. In 90s America, having a high-tech audio system in your room was the ultimate status symbol, and AIWA knew exactly how to win over the youth culture. Let's look at the heavy artillery AIWA used to bombard the American market back then. AIWA Cassette Boy, HS Series, portable cassette players. Sony had the Walkman, but AIWA had the Cassette Boy and the HS Series. These were the portable players you'd see stuffed into the pockets of baggy jeans or tossed into high school lockers across the country. The specs were no joke for the era. Auto-reverse, the tape played both sides continuously, mind-blowing for a teenager on the bus. Super bass switch, designed to boost those low frequencies for hip-hop and grunge fans. Sleek form factor, better battery life and a slimmer body than most competitors. plus a built-in AM/FM radio. AIWA NSX Series, Shelf Stereo or Hi-Fi System. This is the absolute legend of the American bedroom and basement, the AIWA NSX Series. Almost every 90s kid remembers the futuristic design with the VFD LCD screens and equalizers that bounced to the rhythm of the music. Why was this system worshipped? Look at the specs. 3-disc rotary CD changer. You could load 3 CDs at once and it rotated automatically, the ultimate flex when friends came over. Dual logic cassette deck. 2 tape slots, perfect for recording and dubbing, making the ultimate mixtapes off the radio. BBE system and T-Bass. This was AIWA's secret sauce. The high-definition sound technology made the treble crystal clear, and the T-Bass button delivered a punch that could literally rattle your neighbor's windows during house parties. Of course, AIWA wasn't alone. Globally and in the US, the 90s audio market was a bloodbath. AIWA was surrounded by heavy hitters. The parent, Sony. Sony played in the premium tier. Their MHC series was incredibly luxurious, but drained your bank account. AIWA was a thorn in Sony's side because many potential Sony buyers ended up switching to AIWA, which offered similar specs for way less money. Panasonic, known for building absolute tanks. Their durability was legendary, but when it came to cool, youthful design, AIWA had the upper hand. The heavyweight challenger, JVC. In the US, the bass wars were real. JVC released the legendary Kaboom box. The street-level debate between AIWA's T-Bass and JVC's Kaboom tube was a massive talking point for 90s audio junkies and breakdancers. Who do you think had the glass-shattering bass? Let us know in the comments below. Despite the fierce competition, in the 90s, AIWA led globally in the mini component category. They broke sales records and their revenue hit billions of dollars. They felt invincible. And as often happens in the history of tech, arrogance is the prologue to a downfall. Entering the late 90s and early 2000s, a massive storm arrived. Music transitioned from physical formats, cassettes and CDs, into invisible digital files, MP3s. Computers began replacing shelf stereos as the entertainment hub in the bedroom. Then in 2001, Apple released the iPod, radically changing how humans carried music. What did AIWA do? They were slow, incredibly slow. AIWA was too comfortable cashing in on tape decks and CD changers. They failed to adapt to the digital trend. On the flip side, audio components were getting cheaper as factories in China and South Korea flooded the market with absurdly low-priced products. AIWA's position as the affordable middle-tier brand was destroyed by new products that were drastically cheaper. AIWA sales plummeted. A company that once generated hundreds of millions was suddenly drowning in debt. AIWA was on the brink of bankruptcy. Seeing its subsidiary dying, Sony finally took 100% ownership of AIWA in 2002. Sony tried to save the brand with a massive rebranding campaign. The iconic lowercase red AIWA logo was erased. It was replaced by a bizarre blue and silver logo that looked like a bean. The new slogan lacked direction. Sony positioned the new AIWA as a PC-centric electronics brand, producing things like USB flash drives and MP3 players. Unfortunately, the designs were subpar, and their core audio identity was completely lost. Longtime AIWA loyalists felt betrayed. The experiment was a total failure, with sales continuing to tank and Sony itself struggling to restructure against the rising threats of Apple and Samsung. Sony made a lethal decision. In 2006, Sony officially killed and shut down the AIWA brand entirely. Products were pulled and the AIWA name vanished from electronic stores worldwide. The story of AIWA is a harsh and brutal reminder in the tech business. Innovation is key, and adaptation is mandatory. Those who are too late to recognize change will be crushed by time, no matter how big their name once was. Today, AIWA systems might just be electronic relics or collectibles for vintage audio enthusiasts, but its legacy lives on in our ears. AIWA once brought color and dropped the heavy bass that soundtracked our teenage years through spinning cassette tapes. What about you? Did you or your family ever own an AIWA product growing up? Drop the model and your story in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our archives of tech nostalgia that shape the world we live in today. See you in the next video.